Welcome to Product Acquisition here at ITX. One comment I've heard from some people, well, and I'll share a little bit about me, right? I love using different AI platforms, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it might be, for ideation on almost anything. Like it's become my my VA at work. I guess literally VA, virtual assistant, right? But if it's hey, we're trying to brainstorm, whatever it might be, I start there, and it doesn't end there. I don't just take that and run with it and say, oh, these are the answers. But I use it as a starting point. I've heard some people sort of criticize that as saying, oh, if everybody does, you're over-reliant on AI for things like ideation, we're not using our brains. And so I don't know, I wanted to get your take on it, because it's like, well, we use calculators sometimes to compute math. So what is your take on that?
It's just a tool, and different people are going to use it in different ways. There are some people who are going to be very passive about it. There's a great story by Scott Alexander from about 2012 called The Magic Earring, and it talks about an earring that you wear, and it makes suggestions about what to do in a situation, and it's always right, and it's always better. It doesn't mean you wouldn't necessarily make a better choice, but sometimes we make wrong choices. It never makes a wrong choice. And do you keep wearing the earring? I don't know. And so there are people who will wear the earring, right? And there are other people who will take on that variance in life and still, come up with their own ideas, and use the tool less passively, more actively. And I think you can do it either way, right? Because you can, and we did this in the workshop yesterday where I gave a very simple prompt, maybe 15 or 20 words, and it's like all of a sudden you've got a whole little clickable mobile experience. Like, that's insane. And it doesn't look exactly the same as the person who did it next to me, but it's kind of the same as everyone else in the room. And so that's when you have to bring your own personal experience to the table, your own personal perspective, because it is just a tool, right? And as you engineer that context, to use that newish phrase that I did not create, but I think is important, that's when you start to see some of that magic. That's when you start, like for myself, even for my presentation, like I had all the content, I kind of needed a turn, like an aha moment. I had some ideas, and so I just dumped all the content into the context window. And I like a typical prompt is like, give me 5 versions and 3 reasons for each one. And it gave me one that was like, oh, well, that's not right exactly, but it's almost there. And then you kind of carry it all the way. And if you were in my workshop yesterday, hopefully you liked it, and I had some help.
Well, let me ask you this. What if people weren't in your workshop yesterday? What are some, I mean, obviously we can't replay the whole workshop right here in the next 30 minutes, but, I think when it comes to maybe like things like prototyping using
Sure.
AI, what benefits are there, when we think about it? What are outcomes that you might be able to expect to get out of using AI when prototyping?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so thinking about prototyping as a component of ideation that is typically higher cost than just writing things down on a piece of paper or discussing it or some other representation. The cost, it's cheaper than ever, right? And then if you think about ideas as typically we want to have like a very divergent experience, right? We get a lot of ideas, and then we kind of look at them and we push some of them together. We think we sort of have others consider it, and you kind of work through this down selecting process of getting lots of ideas, taking the best ones, developing them further, taking the best ones there, developing them further. So you can have more ideas at a higher fidelity at an earlier stage, which ultimately should come with better outcomes. I have a very specific story about that. I met somebody who worked in the film industry and was providing a storyboarding tool, right? So for creative concepting for films. And they were leading their pitch essentially with like, oh, this is cheaper, this is cheaper, this is cheaper. And the concepting teams are like, no one cares. We're rounding error in a movie budget. What they care is we get a really good idea, and we get better ideas with this tool because we can create and evaluate and visualize so many more ideas.